Me? Good evening, and welcome to the third and final forum of the evening. Our candidates for mayor of South Miami, and the two candidates are the incumbent, the current mayor, Phillip Stoddard, and a challenger, Julio Robaina Jr. And we gave the mayor the option of going first or second in opening statements, and he chose to go first. So 2 minutes each for opening statements, and then we'll proceed with the questions. Everybody's phones are on silent, right? And we'll have attention for the candidates.
Well, thank you for listening to us instead of Obama tonight. I hope you get the better show. Most of you know me. I've been doing this job for 2 years now. By now, you know my values. You know I keep my promises, that I'm not too proud to apologize when I'm wrong, and I believe government needs to be honest and transparent in order to function. The past 2 years have been a collective effort of the community. A lot of you, people present today, have stepped forward, giving your time to serve on boards and committees. And here are some of the things we've accomplished together. We've reduced property taxes to their lowest rate in 30 years, possibly in the city's history, despite the worst economic time since the Great Depression. And despite the economy, we put South Miami in a stronger financial position than it saw during the boom years of rising property values. The city has $3 million in reserves and $2.6 million surplus. We enacted significant pension reforms to contain pension costs for the first time in the city's history. We've worked on transparency and accountability. As I promised you 2 years ago, you were allowed to vote on term limits, and you chose them by a margin of 3-1. The city's finances are now online, and you can watch the city commission meetings on your computer anytime you want. The most important issues for most residents are safe streets and homes. The city's traffic calming projects had stalled, and we got them moving again. I continue to spearhead the fight against FPL's plan to run high-voltage transmission lines through the heart of our city. South Miami is now known as the city that fought back. Our coalition now includes citizens groups, 5 municipal governments, business leaders, and the University of Miami has just signed on. We're in a stronger position than ever to win this fight. A developer said recently, when the tree huggers are gone after this election, we'll get to do what we want in South Miami. Well, Miami's a city of tree huggers, and we're not going anywhere. We see the concrete canyon of 70th Street, and we don't want our city to look like Dadeland or the downtown Gables. But we're being presented with a false choice. If we support good planning and design, we can have it both ways, with verdant streets and a commercial district that improves everyone's quality of life. I'm running for a second term to continue the progress of the past 2 years. My wife and I chose South Miami to live, to raise a family, and to retire. The quality of life and the integrity of city government matter deeply to us both. I promise to continue working hard for you, to continue doing my best, and to retain your trust.
Thank you, Mayor. Now to Julio Robaina Jr.
Thank you. And first of all, let me thank everyone that's present here today, the group that put this forum together. Knowledge is power, and people in this community have a right to know who's who and who will be their future leaders. That said, let me start by letting you know that I'm Julio Robaina, the former mayor of South Miami, not the former mayor of Hialeah. I want to be very clear. A lot of accusations, please, folks, that it's not me. I want to start with that. Who's Julio Robaina? Well, I am actually born and raised in Miami, lived in South Miami for 40 years. I've been a former vice mayor here, a mayor, now a small business owner, which we'll talk a lot about small business this evening, and an individual who has a passion for public service. And people ask me, why are you coming back? Why do you want to get involved in the city of South Miami? Because I see a lot of things that really are going astray, a lot of things that are going wrong in this community. And that's why I'm involved. Not because some people claim that we're career politicians. It's really because I have a passion to serve you, and I enjoy it. And I've been blessed throughout my years to make a lot of good friendships and to understand what this city needs. This whole city, not just one section of the city, it really needs. That said, I'm going to very quickly tell you about our accomplishments, pages of it. I got pages of my accomplishments I'm willing to share with everyone of what we've done here in the past. But, I think you can probably bring it all together by telling you that I was the mayor here in 2001 when this city was named one of the top 10 cities in the United States. That's what that All America City was all about. It was about a lot of moving parts, doing the right thing, and not forgetting any part of this community. But I also want to remind everyone that I'm also running because we need to respect voters and we need a balance in the city of South Miami.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the first question to the candidates, and then we'll go to our panelists and, of course, the audience questions after that. The first question for Mr. Stoddard. There is a recent editorial in the community newspaper from the past mayor claiming that there are problems with the budget, that it's unrealistic, and that they are cost omitted. Can you respond to issues that the budget is being mismanaged, and that's my word?
Well, the city's budget won every possible budget category from the Society of Groups that oversees city budget managers. The budget is the most transparent budget this city has ever seen. And if there's anything missing from that budget, I would challenge anybody to point it out. It's perfectly transparent. You can see right through it. So, you know, these vague allegations don't do us any good. If someone's got a suggestion of something that ought to be there, let us know, because we're looking for people for the Budget and Finance Committee next summer.
Thank you. Mr. Robaina, you claim that the reason that you're running again to be mayor of South Miami is due to a lack of leadership in the city. You were quoted in the Miami Herald as saying there's, quote, a lack of decorum on the commission and instability in City Hall. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, absolutely. I don't know if you've tried to come into this chamber and speak, but you're actually preached to. And if you have a different point of view, you're basically verbally attacked from the dais. And I think that leadership starts with an example from this commission. And that's happening here every time. Ask anybody that no longer wants to come to the city to do business. If you go in front of the boards, which are hand-chosen, to put certain people in there that have really made this city very unfriendly to anyone that wants to live or try to open a business in this community. And last but not least, I want to dwell on that budget issue. Transparency is key. We all want transparency. But I think that the comments that are being made are, for instance, when they say they have reserves, it's $2.6 million in reserves. Let me tell you, we need more money than that just to handle the lawsuits that are coming as a result of the instability of the open door managers that swung through here in less than a year and a half. They basically have prepared this city for millions of dollars worth of litigation.
Mayor Stoddard, would you like 30 seconds to respond?
I would. When Mr. Robaina was here as mayor, he went through 4 city managers in 2 years. And we had a couple of temporary managers, and then we got a permanent manager. So I think we've done a lot to stabilize the situation. I think that's all. I think everybody who watches, we do have some unpleasant behavior. I think everybody knows who's responsible for that. I myself, I'm trying to bring people together and treat people as fairly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to questions. Would you like a second to respond as well? I gave him 30 seconds.
Again, and you know, here it is again. It happens all the time. It's really shameful. One of the things that we had what we call decorum, and we did respect people. There was 1 or 2 individuals that at times we couldn't work with, to be very honest with you, but there is a thing called respect for those that come in the chamber, and it's missing in the city of South Miami.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to now come to our panelists with Hans Huseby, representing the Red Sunset Merchants Association.
Well, you folks may have heard this before, but there is among the merchants a widespread feeling that city government doesn't really do much for the merchants. And if anything, we point to Red Road as one good example, where you see the county on doing their part on the east side of of Red Road, and yet in South Miami down there, between 73rd and 74th, it's still a barren sort of wasteland with these little palms that are sometimes alive, sometimes dead. But with this general feeling from the merchants that the city doesn't really care, how do you see the role of city government in helping, and I put that in quotes, but helping the merchants?
Mr. Robaina first.
Well, let me talk about the balance needed in the community. You know, I've had years of experience in here, and now as a small business owner and a 40-year owner of a home in South Miami, I understand the balance. When I left the city of South Miami, the merchants were paying over 60% of the tax burden. The residential component was paying less. And that's what we want to do. And a thriving community of merchants is good for the homeowners in the city of South Miami. We have seen the deterioration of the relationship between this government that currently exists and the business sector that to the point where there's almost no communication. There isn't a day that I don't go through a store or through a property in downtown that people say, what happened to those days when the city used to work with us, when there were meetings, when we had town hall meetings, when the Red Sunset merchants were so active. And the thing is, we need to create the relationship, market it. If you're successful, it's good for the city, and it's good for all the property owners in South Miami.
Mr. Stoddard, a minute to Hans's question.
Okay, well, I've been to the Red Sunset Merchants and the Chamber a couple times talking about the idea of a tri-area business district of South Miami, Gables, and the county. I still think it's a great idea. I haven't been able to get the business owners to catch fire yet, and I'm hoping that they do. We have too much asphalt and not enough trees. People should be able to park once and walk everywhere and stay cool and shady. I think that the shared parking ordinance was trashed a few years ago because one person was exploiting it. And I think we need to look at bringing that back again, because that would, parking is one of the things that is a limited supply because we don't use it efficiently. And there's much better ways to do it.
Hans, would you like to follow up or wait till your next round?
Next round.
Okay. So we'll get the next question from Pastor Rodney James from the Concerned Clergy of South Miami. It goes to Mayor Stoddard first.
With the possibility of annexing other areas of the county into the city of South Miami, that would or has the potential of limiting both the voice and the vote of the African Americans in South Miami. Would you then, at that possibility, be willing to discuss changing the way the city holds elections from at-large to single districts so that the African American voice will be continually at the table? As you know, this year will be the first time in a long time that there will not be a representative from the African American community on the commission.
A minute to Mayor Stoddard.
Well, the South Miami's African American community is indeed the oldest community. In fact, tomorrow, Mr. Green Mitchell is going to turn 103. He came here, I believe it was in 1933, 78, 79 years ago. This is an old community, a deep community. It's important to this city, and it has to be maintained and has to be respected. And if we don't maintain some representation on the commission, at least much of the time, I'm afraid it's going to get run over. So I think that is probably the only argument that would persuade me to think about sort of districts for running, because normally they're just a pain in the neck.
Mr. Robaina, the same question.
Thank you. That's a great question, Pastor, and thank you. Going into certain districts is important because I think everyone saw earlier when candidate Josh brought the map of South Miami that you currently have all the elected bodies sit within a couple blocks of each other. The African American community probably or may not have representation at all this year, and I think it's long overdue that we do that so that there is somebody elected from every segment of the community. I call that a no-brainer. But there's forces here that probably do not like that. They like the thought that they can all live within a couple of blocks. I'm just letting you know that for a fact. Another thing that needs to be changed while we're talking about these issues is the date that this city votes. I think it's purposely done, and they want to say that it's because it's a small city. You know, it costs us money to have our elections in February. We need to be piggybacking in on the larger elections so that the elections are decided not by 1,200 voters, but with possibly the 6,000 voters that really should have a say and are motivated to come out. But nobody even knows that on Valentine's Day, South Miami has an election, so we need to look at changing that also.
Thank you. Next question will come from Shawn Cruz of South Miami Hometown, Inc.
Most of the commercial property owners don't live in South Miami, and therefore they cannot vote. One of the largest property owners, as we know, is South Miami Hospital or Baptist, and with the exception of a couple of their buildings, they don't pay property taxes. Therefore, both of these entities are pretty much ignored by City Hall. And however, close to 50% of the tax dollars come from the commercial properties, and South Miami Hospital employs probably over 200 residents in the city of South Miami. My question to you guys is, with the commission, and it's always probably on your term and on the current mayor's term, there's always been some differences up on the diocese, and then there's some differences with the staff. How do you propose to move forward working better with these entities? Because I mean, as South Miami Hometown Inc., I can speak for most of them, and they're not happy.
Mr. Robaina first.
Thank you. Well, let me let you know that when I served as mayor, our relationship with the hospital was a great relationship. It's really soured. I mean, this elected body and this staff constantly blasts what I consider to be an honor to have a hospital like that in my community. It saved my dad's life several times. I've been to it. But more importantly, when they say they don't pay taxes, a portion is not for profit. But there is a portion that does pay taxes, and they're always here for this community whenever we need them for sponsorships or anything else. And let's talk about jobs. You know how many people work that live in South Miami in that hospital? A lot. And all they're asking is there a fair shake. They want to be heard. They want to be considered. And lately, they've closed them down. Nobody listens to their needs. But let me tell you, they've been very good citizens, but more importantly, they're good neighbors. And a very important part of this community, we need to go back to having that great relationship that we had. And that's going to require some changes from up here in the dais.
Mayor Stoddard, same question.
Well, I'm standing and walking because of South Miami Hospital. And I'll say that I have not ignored them. One of the things I do routinely is I meet with them and I try to bring together some understanding of the hospital and the neighborhood. The hospital sees the world from the hospital out. The neighborhood sees the world from the neighborhood towards the hospital. And there's a very different viewpoint. And I'm trying to get those viewpoints a little bit closer together so the hospital understands their role not just in providing the best healthcare services and being a good employer, but also as being a neighbor. And I have to say, Mr. Lincoln Mendez needed some education, but over time he is gradually coming to understand the neighborhood relations better. And I'm looking forward to things continuing to improve.
Mr. Cruz, would you like to follow up on anything they said there?
This is close enough to the same issue, but again, it takes 5 commissioners to do certain things, changes with regards to development on these property owners. And you know, that both of you as mayor have reached out to, whether it be the hospital or other entities, but how do you work together as a group when you've got issues that you need, you know, 5 of 5 voters sometimes to decide?
We'll stick with the same order. Mr. Robaina.
Well, remember now, of course, you know, that particular issue becomes somewhat of a hindrance. And by the way, we have actually a mayor here of our current city that she doesn't have to deal with those 5, unanimous votes. But that said, it's going back to what we used to do, Shawn. We used to have meetings with the hospital all the time. They were a vital component, and we used to sit. Staff, myself, unfortunately not all the commissioners could meet because of the sunshine issues, but we would sit with them and staff and listen to their needs, and we were very sensitive to those who lived along Manor Lane. Eventually, I was one of the ones that was able to stop a helicopter from ever being put in there and the noise that came from the hospital. So we've been very sensitive to the need of the residents, but also working hands-on with the hospital.
Mr. Stoddard.
And your question, Shawn, was how to get 5 votes. On the last commission meeting, I needed 4 votes to move the pool forward on the operator's contract. I started with 3 votes. By the end of the evening, I had 5 votes. And the way you do it is by listening to people, by giving them some say, by understanding what their issues are. When I say people, I mean my colleagues on the commission, not shutting anybody down, not fighting with anybody, but letting everybody say what's important and making sure that their viewpoints get incorporated. And when that happens, 5 people can agree.
Okay, let's get another question from James Dundorf, South Miami Neighbors Association.
Sure. Let's pick up on the pool idea on this one. Both concerned clergy and homeowners